Greetings, viewer. It is I, Hilariously Scary, and today I'm going to be discussing my thoughts on the question, are self-inserts bad? No. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye! Okay, no. But really, I feel like there's a lot of stigma in the OC community about self-inserts and like why they're terrible and how all self-inserts are Mary Sue's and they're always terrible characters, and if you have a self-insert you should feel bad about it and you should delete them immediately, and that self-inserts are the bane of OC kind, and I have to say that I greatly disagree. I'm gonna defend my point, but probably not very well because it's like, oh gosh, I need to be quieter because it's pretty late here and I'm tired. But before I get into that, I want to give the drawing a bit of a disclaimer because I should be drawing Desponia since she is literally my self-insert character. Like, she literally was just me, and then she was me, but not really, and with superpowers, and then she just became a girl with superpowers. But I've been drawing Desponia way too much lately, and I wanted to give some of my other characters some love. So I was like, should I draw Puzzles or should I draw Jamie? And I was like so torn on which I should draw, and then I was like, wait, I'm just gonna draw both of them. So that's the drawing. Jamie and Puzzles both have aspects of myself, but I wouldn't consider them self-inserts. But yeah, let's first define exactly what a self-insert is, because I feel like the way that people talk about it is very problematic, because a lot of times when people say self-insert, they think of a very poorly written character that's obviously just extreme wish fulfillment for the writer. And I feel like I always have to like precursor these, or what is the word? I have to like qualify all these conversations by saying that if you're just writing a story for yourself, or you're just drawing art for yourself, and all you want to do is draw yourself and have yourself go to different dimensions or have superpowers or torture all your friends or give all your friends cookies and make everybody like you, like go for it, as long as you're not hurting anybody. Like do you, like don't freaking like screw what other people say. But like if you want to write like a real character and like try to pursue this as a career, you do probably need to make your character make sense. But plain old wish fulfillment and plain old this character just being the author but in a much cooler world is like totally fine. Have you ever read the Diary of a Wimpy Kid series? Like, that's literally just the author retelling his childhood story. I should have researched this, but Greg is literally whatever the author's name is. It's the same person. That's a self-insert, but they didn't make it like overly obvious. And just when you sacrifice the integrity of the story to make the protagonist look cool or do some sort of wish fulfillment for the protagonist, that's when self-inserts become a problem. But a lot of stories are just wish fulfillment. Like Harry Potter, that's just wish fulfillment. That's just people wishing that some wizard was going to take them away from their terrible life and tell them that they were really important and that they were actually really famous. That's just wish fulfillment, and that's not bad. Wish fulfillment isn't bad. Self-inserts aren't bad. But when you combine the two and you add really weakly written characters and you compromise the story and the other characters to bend around the main character and the main wish fulfillment, then that's when self-inserts become bad. The idea of inserting yourself into a story and that being a bad thing is such a toxic idea, because you cannot write stories without using yourself. I can't think of a single story that the author didn't say this was me, or this was an experience I had, or this was a friend of mine that I used this experience to write a story, because stories are just aspects of our lives that have been dialed up to an 11. And I'll say this all the time, like my stories are always a reflection of how I was feeling in that time frame and what was happening to me. That back in the day of when I was creating Desponia, originally I was in this small town and I was in a very small community of that small town, and I didn't fit in with everybody else. I'm not one of those other girls, but like I really didn't, because I did certain things that other people were deemed wrong and bad, and they were treating me like I was some sort of bad person. So to kind of cope with it, I created this character who was a bad person, and she was the villain, and she didn't care. She just burned down entire villages and destroyed entire civilizations, and she was cool and she was happy with it, and she was just like, screw everybody. And it was a really problematic character looking back, but it was just my way of venting. And I told a story about this girl who was evil and was a villain and got what was coming to her, because I felt like that was me in the moment. I feel like I didn't do a great job explaining this in my evolution of my OCs video. The old versions of Desponia, people were saying like, I kind of like old Desponia better, or Desponia got boring is what I hear a lot. Not necessarily just from the internet, but just around. They're like, you made Desponia really boring. She used to be really interesting. And I agree, but Desponia, it's kind of funny because Jamie in this drawing actually gets a lot of old Desponia. She has the firepower. She has the screw everybody mentality. She very much acts like a villain a lot of the times. The reason that I changed Desponia was not because I thought that it was necessarily bad, but I just felt like I didn't handle it very well, and I felt like her story had more potential elsewhere, which is why I changed her. But the concept itself is not necessarily bad. Like I said, it was just an aspect of my life. It was a self-insert that I just dialed up to an 11 and made a story out of. I did the same thing with intelligence. I kind of like dance around the issue because I don't want to talk about it. When I created intelligence, I had just lost somebody very close to me, and so I told this story about this person who lived for thousands of years, and every time that he got close to somebody, he lost them. So his best friend, Obsession, and his sister, Knowledge, they both betray him, and Obsession dies, and then Intelligence runs away from Knowledge, so he loses both of his early best friends. And he falls in love with a girl, and she dies. He falls in love with a different girl, and she leaves him, and it's just this character who over and over and over again, he loses everything, because in that moment, I felt like I lost everything. And so that's just how I tell stories. It's a good way to tell compelling stories. If you draw on your own experiences, it can create really dynamic characters. And I'm not saying that you can't create characters without relying on like aspects of yourself. Okay, this is gonna sound like a hot take, but I believe that self-inserts are the best way to destroy cliches. Now, what on earth do I mean by that? If we try to write about something that we haven't experienced, our natural inclination is to fall back on cliches. So I see a lot of stories about people going to the circus, and I don't know about you, but I've never been to the circus. If you have been to the circus, then this might not apply to you, but if I were to go about writing a scene in a circus, and let's say that it's a horror story, because all circus stories are horror stories, I might come up with like a scary clown, and like the character might go into a house of mirrors, and the mirrors he's gonna be like, oh no, where's the person? It chapter 2 and maybe there's like a tightrope scene where like the main character has to get across the tightrope, and it's like, it's fine, but like we've just seen it all before, because I've never been to the circus, so I can't like draw my own experiences to write something new and not cliche. So what if instead of writing a circus scene, I wrote a scene where somebody was going to the fair? And I've been to a billion new fairs. I don't know if this is a thing outside of the South, but there's like fairs in every town. The town that my family's living in, there's like a fair every other week. I was just at the fair, and I rode one of those rides where it spins around really fast and it presses you up against the side, and you can like sit horizontally. The centripetal force will hold you there, and it gave me an idea. So there's a supernatural killer that's after this person, and she's like trying to get her family to listen to her, and her family like whatever, and they take her to the fair, and her sister wants to ride on this machine, and she's still like, I don't know, and she's like, don't worry about it, it's totally fine. So she gets on this ride that spins her around and presses her up against the wall, and she can't move. And then it was really interesting because as we were spinning, every time that we went by the door, there was like a flash of light, and so like I could just see that flash of light, and then the killer crawls in, and then a flash of light, and the killer's closer, but like she can't move because she's being pushed against this, and she has to like crawl her way out of this spinning thing, and like it's so hard because it's like pushing against her. And like, if I thought about it for more than 5 minutes, I could probably come up with a better idea, but that already is a lot less cliche than the House of Mirrors things. Like, we've seen a million House of Mirrors thing, you don't have to do it again. But like, I think it'd be pretty cool. I think that people have done things with the spinning machine, but like, you get the idea. Okay, people keep on calling me professional. I'm not a professional. Okay, first of all, I don't have a job, so I can't be a professional. But I'm going to quote a professional. I don't know if you can hear, but I'm holding a book. ASMR. This is a book called The TV Writer's Workbook by Ellen Sandler, and Ellen is actually an author, a veteran writer and producer, shares the secrets of her phenomenal success. The ultimate insider's guide to TV writing is what it says on the back. Yeah, she was the co-executive producer on Everybody Loves Raymond, and she worked on like a bunch of other things. Anyways, she's a professional, and she wrote about this, so you know that it's legit. And I'm just gonna read what she wrote. Am I allowed to read this? I can edit it out if I'm not. Okay, so she was telling us how to use our own experiences to find storylines. So she says, here's an example of how I might use my experience of the Sara Lee brownie binge, because she went on a binge of eating a bunch of brownies, in a hypothetical story for Everybody Loves Raymond. I translate this guilty pleasure of eating something forbidden to the character Deborah. She starts with this image that she got from her experience of licking the inside of the tin, and starts to ask herself questions like, what circumstances would get Deborah to the point of licking the last bit of fudge frosting out of the frozen pancake? Well, maybe she's supposed to be on a diet. She'd be embarrassed if she got caught. If this is going to be a Everybody Loves Raymond story, I want to get Ray into the action. I want it to be most embarrassing if Ray catches her. How can I do that? What if I set up a challenge? Ray claims golf is as important to him as food is to her. Deborah scoffs. To prove it, Ray challenges her. He will give up golf this weekend if she gives up sweet for a day. Then I think more about Deborah's circumstances. She's a mom. She's not a good cook. Then I think, I'm a mom, I'm a good cook, but I don't have a lot of time to cook, and I remember when I felt pressure to make something for the Halloween bake sale at my kids' school. So what if Deborah commits to baking cookies for a school bake sale, but then she ruins them? And here's what I came up with. Deborah's baking cookies for the kids' school while on a diet. Ray stuffs raw cookie dough in his mouth and makes fun of Deborah. He predicts she'll never be able to stay away from sweets. Later, the cookies come out rock hard. Deborah's too proud to ask Marie for help. Instead, she gets a tin of Sara Lee brownies from the freezer to replace the bad cookies. She ignores the brownies, but she's drawn to them. They aren't even defrosted yet when she cuts a very thin slice out of the tin and savors it. It is heaven. She cuts another very thin slice, then another. Less savoring, more gobbling this time. Ray catches Deborah running her finger along the inside of the now empty Sara Lee brownie tin and licking the chocolate off it. She gives up on the finger and licks the pan. Ray watches her until Deborah realizes she's not alone, and Ray wins the challenge. I used my own guilty experience to create a revealing moment for a character. If I hadn't done the exercise to discover my own real experiences with gluttony, I probably wouldn't have come up with this idea for the story. But even if I did, I might have used some standard cliche of emotional overeating, like having Ray catch Deborah eating ice cream out of a container. That's okay, but dull. We've seen it too many times before. Anyway, so she goes on to explain how we can do that in our own writing. It's a very good book. You should give it a read, even if you aren't into TV writing as I am. I'm by no means saying that Ellen in that moment is using Deborah as her self-insert OC. I know that it's a very different connotation, but I'm just using this to warn against the idea of people seeing self-inserts as this terrible thing, because it makes people scared to, like, draw on their own experiences. And I just want people to know, like, it's very okay to draw on your own experiences. In fact, you should always, like, draw on your own experiences whenever you're trying to write something. That's how you make things real. I feel like I'm getting around the idea and there's, like, some, like, perfect thesis statement to what I'm trying to say that I don't really understand. Let me think. I'm a writer. I can come up with this. You should use self-inserts to write stories. You should not write stories to use self-inserts. It's weak characters. Okay. OP characters are fine. Weak OP characters that are poorly written are not fine. Self-inserts are fine. Weak, poorly written self-inserts are not fine. Mary Sue's are fine. Really weak, poorly written Mary Sue's are not fine. That's the thing. I'm not saying everybody, but a lot of people point to these external factors. Oh, it's because the character is overpowered that it's bad. It's because the character is a self-insert that it's bad. It's because the character is obviously the author and obviously just wish fulfillment that it's bad. But no, because there's characters that are OP that are good. There's characters that are self-inserts that are good. There's characters that are self-inserts and super full of wish fulfillment that are good. It's weak characters that break stories, not these external factors. So please don't feel bad if your OC is a self-insert. It's totally fine. Never be scared to draw on your own experiences to write a story because you're scared it might be a self-insert. In fact, do the opposite. Use your own experiences to write stories. If you are really interested in making characters and telling stories and doing your own art, please seek out the advice of somebody who is a lot more experienced than me, because, like, get the book, go to school, do things. I know that I'm such a hypocrite, but you probably shouldn't listen to me. Oh yeah, I have an amino now. It's called Overseer's Amino, and it's for people who want to make Overseer characters, or just want to discuss Overseers, or just want to support me. Because honestly, everybody that makes Overseer OCs makes me so happy, because I made the Overseers in a way that people could make their own OCs, because I wanted people to do this, and the fact that they're already doing this without me even having to like go through the absolute death of trying to make my own TV show just makes me so happy every day. So if you want to go check that out, I'll leave a link in the description. Right now we're running an OCT, which is an original character tournament. If you don't know what that is, you should totally look into it if you're into writing in OCs, because it's so much fun. It's very collaborative. It's very interesting. We have a bunch of posts on the Amino talking about it. Yeah, so please join my Amino. Hope you enjoyed watching. Self-inserts aren't bad, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!